Hello and welcome to the DM's Book Club, a weekly book club podcast where we talk about some Dungeons and Dragons and discuss how we might include it in our role-playing campaigns. Ooh, lots of composer hand signals there. I like that. Very sort of smooth flow.
Being more fluid, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, ooh. Maybe we're just messing around with the art, as it were, and the weave. That's what I imagine we were doing there.
Yes.
My name is Fiona, and as always, I have my wonderful erstwhile co-host Hamilton joining me here for yet again another episode. Hamilton, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I don't know what the word erstwhile means. I'm going to be honest. I've said it loads of times.
Loads of times.
No, don't actually know what it means.
Here's a fun fact. Me neither.
Yeah.
It just sounded like a cool thing to say. I'm going to double check.
It's what people say. My erstwhile adventurer. Erstwhile.
Hang on, I'm going to look.
Former.
Oh. Erstwhile. I feel it's like some sort
old,
of
old as well. It can also mean
okay, old. Yeah, sometime, one time. I always thought it was like a really cool energy.
Yes.
All right, I need a different word then. Sorry, not former, you're current. I always say the wrong thing as, different words and stuff, but I like the idea somebody going like, Hamilton keeps coming back, but she keeps referring to him as erstwhile host.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it makes sense when you say erst, once while, once while.
It's definitely like the Dutch is for one, I think.
Okay.
So that's why I was like, oh yeah, the foremost, perhaps, but I don't, who knows? Anyway, that's my language talk. Etiquettemology. There you go, done.
Etymology, love it.
How's stuff happening in Wraithborn Land, Hamilton Land?
Things are happening in Wraithborn Land. I'm deep in vampiric lore at the moment. I've been writing a lot of vampire stuff, which has been fun. I enjoy particularly the sort of Bloodseeker class I've made, which are these sort of like chimeric, which is very, I mean, you probably where something we were talking about the other day might have come from in my mind, because it's probably all in there, where there's these vampires are sort of, that have been slain, get sort of merged with giant spiders, and this spider abdomen grows in their back, and they get these huge claws that like spider legs that come out the back of them, and pincer. And then they can pincer things to draw their blood. And they're sort of like blood delivery units for main vampires. But I've kind of like given them like this whole faction, and they can choose like different parts of the Coven of Blood is their like leadership, which is like a matriarchal society that's led by these super huntresses. And they've got 4 different factions. And I've been like having loads of fun making. They got some really there's like really Morkborg on the nose names, but I'll share them with you. So you've got like the Hex Wraith, which are like the assassins, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Secret sect that deals the tiresome job of eliminating the internal threats within the vampiric leds. You are trained in the art of fighting your own kin and are feared across the realm. Having fun, right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Drake Bane, which are like, because the vampires are like trying to take over this other land, which is like protected by dragons. And so like, this is a section of Coven that specializes in the elimination of the draconic threat. And you get to, you get your own Vrick, which is like a large winged, bat-winged sort of bird creature I've created. So you can have one of those as a mount. I'm like, I fucking want that. So like, I'm doing things I want. Nice. Yeah. So, and then you got the Zendatir, which are like bounty hunters, and the Selgir, which are like beast hunters. So yeah, but I'm having fun. I'm like, just Hexwraith and Drakebane are like other game ideas I could just have. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's nice to be so creative and be like, because I know what happens in general sort of game design stuff like that. You're like, yes, this is great, and then the further you get along, you go to the Dark Night of the Soul, you go, oh no, so much, and then there's like peaks and troughs. But I'm glad you're in this state right now, going like creativity.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in that fun. I'm in the fun bit of like, just like. The thing is, I know like there's certain people out there who'd be like, I want it to be super balanced, and I'm trying my best, but at the end of the day, I'm like, this also game wants to be just badass, and I'm just like, how can I make everything just as like, not like you're super overpowered. You don't get like, you can cast 1 billion D10 and everyone burns, but I want a fucking big vampire bat I can ride as some sort of arachnid vampire concoction myself. Sounds pretty fun.
You want the cinematic view of like, like that sort of Valhalla. You want that over the top.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and they are also like vampire Vikings, so it kind of makes sense.
Very cool, very cool. I will say, I've just discovered that the adverb for erstwhile is formerly in the past, but the adjective has been sort of like conflated with esteemed to be respected. And I think that's what I'm saying, is that my respected colleague. So,
that's what I thought it did mean. So
that's what I thought it did. But maybe from now on, I'll say esteemed co-host. I think that just so that everyone knows I'm not saying former ex or anything like that.
I'm well-steamed.
Well-steamed. No, so exciting about Wraithborn and stuff. And just being able to sit and be creative. I know we don't get that a lot now. And obviously, I know sometimes it's a privilege to have that time. We're all time poor. But it's just so exciting. Like, at the time of recording for me, I've just finished Blades in the Dark.
I was going to say, And
I think what's been interesting is that it's the first time for a long time I've run something that I've had not complete control over, like, improvised. I'm good at improvising stuff, but it was a longer series. It was on stream. We were using new rules. So there was lots of different factors. And whilst there was like bits of like, oh God, and like, sorting things out, it was a really valuable experience. And I always say like, oh, you should always run games and all that sort of thing. But it's really cemented my love of like factions and like different cool settings. And God, Blades is so good. Like, I think it's just got a great setting, and the deep cuts helps it and all that sort of thing. And I think everyone should play a game of like that kind of like player first, big swings, all that sort of thing, and just see where it gets to you. And I know it's very different to sometimes what we're talking about in terms of like, we roll and then we have to hit a DC, whereas like in Blades in the Dark and those Forged in the Dark games, you are like, you will succeed. It's whether or not you can avoid the consequences of what's happening, which is such a small, subtle change, but it's such a wide, like, people having to rethink how you play, So.
That's really cool. I really want to give it a go. It's on the top of the list. It's on the higher end of the list than the lower end of the list. Sure.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. Again, I probably went into deep end, like doing it for a live stream. That was my first time ever running Blades in the Dark. But I feel like you would enjoy it. I think our friends at the Backwater Bastards would also really enjoy it.
Maybe, Fiona, you've got to run us a game. I think this sounds like you've got to run us a game.
Oh, no.
Another Ware episode?
I mean, I've not done Blades in the Dark for Ware. So maybe it's a hard one-shot game is the one I say, but maybe a 2 or 3 shot, definitely.
2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Do a heist.
Heist, yeah, absolutely.
Me and Dan can bring our Outback adventurers. We could.
Outback adventurers. Yeah, I mean that is forward-thinking, like player-forward characters. Yeah, absolutely.
But I think I was telling Fiona off camera that I did off podcast about this thing me and Dan did. But I was just saying I figured out a trick I saw a trick, and it's from QI, about how to do a good Australian accent, and it's a trick anyone can employ. So if you want to try this,
I'll try it now.
You've got to sound like you've got something in your chest there, like it's just about to come out.
In your chest?
You're like, a little bit of indigestion or something. And I'm just not sure if it's coming up. And that's how it's kind of helps, you kind of want to bring yourself in there. Like, right there, Bruce, you're looking a little bit, like you got something stuck in your throat, like that. Yeah,
I think I'm just going to hold my breath. I think that's what I'm doing.
It's the kind of thing, but it's I think Stephen Fry said it, and I've been practicing it. And
that's so funny.
I don't know, it was a funny thing.
That's cool.
Anyway, there's a trick for you out there. Just sound like you've got indigestion when you try and do Australian accent.
Well, unfortunately, enough of character tips and what we've been up to, Hamilton. Yeah. Let's go back to our tour of Thay.
Well done for selling it to the people.
No. I guess, again, in the sense of, obviously, we've been enjoying going around and seeing bits of Thay, and obviously this is the final leg of our tour. But it's a mixture of like, God, Thay is a terrible place, which we already do. But also, I think both you and I have come to the same conclusions that there's more Tharchers than needed for this. And a lot of them feel very similar and also could be one-liners. And it's kind of interesting to, like, now we've done it. And I think we're glad that we've split it up, because obviously there's some really interesting bits. But at the same time, you're going like, God, this place is just full of rolling hills and verdant land, and like, what's special about it? So today, friends, we're going to go through the last 6 Tharchers in our trip to Thay. In Thay, Land of the Red Wizards by Ed Greenwood. So I guess we should just dive right in, unless there's something that brings to mind.
No, I think it's just the only thing I'd say is that just as an overarching thing, and just following on from what you said, is that a lot of these feel like it's for people who are maybe going out there and wanting to build your own worlds and write your own stories, etc., like that, as in some advice sort of thing. Is like, I don't know, it kind of gives you a lot of faith that actually, if you read all these ones, you could probably distill those into a lot of these into 1 or 2, like probably 2 paragraphs each, and still get all the information you want to across in that would sell it to people and make people not want to run away screaming at times.
Yeah.
That's my little because I think the other ones were a little bit they were a little bit more go because I think they were the more populous ones, and now we've hit the sort of least populous ones, and even like Thay Mount, which is quite massive. It's got a few cool things, and there's one where the last one where they've kind of gone, we should make cooler things, chuck them at the end. It's not a lot going on. So where do we go to first?
Let's start at the beginning. We'll go in the alphabetical order as we always do. Let's go to, she says, Priador. Priador, the Jewel of Thay. Now, I will say, I quite liked how it's kind of described, how it got this sort of like name of the Jewel of Thay. It's beautiful, this place. It's like the most recently founded Tharch, the most recently founded state. It's only a century old, but as a result, I think it has a big impact on stuff. And again, this is something we looked at I think Eberron has it as well. There's like a region that's only like 100 years old as well, and is that sort of like increasing in power. I think maybe is that the one with the religion about the flame? I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's that sort of thing where, it's gaining popular, and it's a really nice place to go. And like it says here, it has given rise to the saying, with all this vegetation, drink every time I say the word vegetation, everyone. Things grow with the blessing of all the gods in Priador. So again, it is beautiful. I can imagine it being cultivated. I can imagine it being, Wind's Garden of the Year, that sort of vibe. Like everything is beautiful and pristine, beautiful flowers, beautiful vegetation. And yeah, essentially, because it's got three of these sort of port cities, the sailors start calling it the Jewels of Thay. And I think that's just a cool way to refer to things of like, as a collection of jewels or, and like each one of them is like, oh, this is the brightest jewel. And then there's the dirty jewel, the least good jewel and all that sort of thing. I just thought as an imagery, I instantly can see it. Because also I can imagine it sparkling as well. It talks a little bit about architecture later on, about these domes, sort of purple hues and stuff like that. So I can imagine it just as you're coming into this port, seeing like the main city, you're just like, wow, what a opulent sight that's greeted you. Very Wizard of Oz is what I was thinking.
Well, it's the city. One of them, it's by Bezantor.
Bezantor, yes,
is now the home of all vices. Was once the city of 1,000 temples.
Yeah,
this one has got architectural magnificence, where older buildings are being torn down and newer, taller ones put up in their place. As a result, that looms impressively or imposingly, depending on your point of view, as it says. So it's giving me real. A peninsula, like either Arabian Peninsula or sort of the Adriatic, or even like the Côte d'Azur sort of vibes. These sort of like, it's very southerly in Thay. It's on the southwestern coast, off from the Alor, which we looked at. Alor,
yes,
Alor, is it? And so it's kind of you kind of get that vibe of this real. This book's very well artified. I don't know if we probably mentioned it a bit, but there's quite a good. Chunk of art here, but it doesn't. I don't think this one, of all of them, particularly sells it in that mind. This more looks like Scotland with a Greek city chucked on the top of it, which I think is a little bit jarring, if you know what I mean. Because it's kind of like rocky. Do you know what I mean? It looks like Fort William, like landscape, but with this sort of more Mediterranean city plonked on top.
Just on there, absolutely.
So it's a bit of it doesn't quite compute in my mind, but it's still, it sounds quite interesting.
I guess what it reminds me of a little bit, because this sort of Bezantor is known as the heart of Thay and the brightest of the jewels, because that is where the fashions are often set. So of course you sort of said it's got this history of like the most sort of like temples, a sort of religious connection, which is now sort of like maybe less popular now because of Szass Tam or what's the thing. But I just was imagining very much like District 1 from Hunger Games. Everyone has these opulent houses, opulent clothes, the big ascot hats, that sort of thing, and everything changes. It's just Paris Fashion Week every single week, and I just thought that would be such a cool visual to come into. Everyone looking great, and everyone's looking at your adventures in your tired, dirty armor, all that sort of thing. Like you stand out and you're like, wow, what is this place? And I think we've said this before. I love like when we have books that talk about the primers, and obviously we've had this one with food, and there's a little bit about clothing and stuff. I think clothing in general is always good. There's a game, I think maybe I've mentioned it to you, called Flabbergasted, which is like 1920s, like fast comedy. Think Jeeves and Wooster, that sort of thing, in like a sort of a European style kind of place. And what's cool about that book and that RPG is that you get supplements about not only like lingo that things were being saying in the 1920s there, which you would immerse yourself in the game, but also you get like a tiny a catalog, like 2 pages of like styles of clothes that you could wear. And I just think that's really cool. Like,
Oh,
you
cool.
got your bell hats, you got your shawls with fur, all that sort of thing. And I was just like, yeah, this is what I would like to wear, and just having that visual representation of what it was. So like, I love this idea about the fashion set. I'd love to see some examples of what that is. And why is it there a point of interest of a hat shop or a clothing place, like a market or something like that? Maybe do people make their own clothes? Probably not if it's Thay, right? But I like the idea of people selling these amazing fabrics. If you've ever been into like a shop which has sells fabric where people make their own clothes, there's just rolls and rolls and rolls of all these different fabrics and buttons and all that sort of thing. And it just feels like it could be really, really tactile. So that's what I was thinking of these wild fashions. I'm suddenly like, what clashing things could I put in and just watch a lot of like runway fashion shows and be like, it's that someone's wearing a bag, but it's actually a pair of jeans. That sort of vibe.
It's got a real like vibe to it. And then, like as you said, you mentioned earlier, the Tainted Jewel being Murband.
Tainted Jewel, yes.
Tainted Jewel, which is where the home of smugglers, traffickers of all types, reeking of fisher folk. And it's the largest but it's surrounded by the largest red wizard estate. And it has it's rumored that others specialize in capturing roaming beasts of the Red Wizard menagerie, sailing them covertly and hastily elsewhere for sale in other places, like other cities and places. So there's kind of this, and it's got amethyst-hued domes atop its houses, and they dominate the city. The local buildings are almost all domes, sport large oval windows. So yeah, a lot of architectural elements going on here.
I think just to go to your point there about capturing of roaming beasts, instantly you could have stories about again, the lands of veils, all that sort of thing, but like, killing off endangered species, the ivory trade, all that sort of thing. I think that could be, again, that's not something necessarily.
Well, that comes up later, doesn't it? A little bit.
Exactly. I just feel like that's something, again, we might not explore too much in fantasy novels, we're like heroes, but again, that idea of like, again, I know the simplest one is to always go for an owlbear, right? But like, what if owlbears are endangered here and they're like, well, they're being hunted for their skin because of
magic.
For their magic, their skin for the fashions. Maybe there's something about their claws or their beak that's used as a jewelry thing. Again, it just opens that possibility that that's a really easy plot hook. If you you are either put on a mission to go and like poach these creatures, or you're put in a position to stop the poachers. I just think that'd be that's such a simple plot hook. And I think it can easily get people in, and it shows like, again, what are these creatures like? They are monsters, in a sense monstrous, but they can defend themselves. But what if it's red wizards going on a hunting party? I hadn't really thought of it like that before.
I think that's a great little through line for an adventurer to get involved in both sides of the fence. And I think it does, as I said, it comes up. Is it? I don't know which one off the top of my head exactly.
I think it's right at the end. I think maybe it's Surthey. I think maybe Surthey.
Yeah, Surthey, because it's the border one, isn't it? Yeah.
The border one is swamps and people going on hunting parties in the swamps, I seem to remember.
That's it. Yes. And then there's Thassalen, which has got a really cool site called the Galloon Towers, or the Galloon Towers, which is a mansion made over 6 luxurious suites, which is now abandoned thanks to a deadly spell duel involving multiple mages and some strong local ward spells that got twisted in the fighting, so that monsters controlled by the mages, and some say the ghosts of apprentices slain in the fray, now appear and disappear at random within the hall, struck eternally in their cycle of casting, attacking, and falling in combat, which I really love. Yeah, and the flickering, failing wards also disgorge dangerous magical discharges from time to time without warning. And of course, there are also treasure tales and wild stories. You're just like, this is a perfect little thing to go to, the Galloon Towers.
This whole bit is like a haunted house. Like everything's kept in, and then you're trapped in it, and you have to survive the night, until dawn style. That's what I was thinking as well. Yeah.
I think it would be a good place to do an adventure, but that's actually really everything that seems to be in there, apart from the Tharchion, Olone I'm trying this. Deamron? Deamron.
Yeah, like last episode we talked about them using their surnames, and now I'm like, Olone. Now we use their name in the first name. That's how good we know that. Yeah, a brilliant and creative spellcrafter. I thought what was interesting about this person is that it says like she has no interest in becoming a red wizard with all that she sees of their haughty blindness to the world as it really is. I was like, that's interesting. Like, again, and maybe a couple of these other folks that we see in as Tharchians for the other things, they are either red wizards, obviously they usually are red wizards, but there's definitely sort of like a distaste for like what they're doing. And so there's that, again, that political tension between people, because they're, again, that point of view of like, I'm more selfish, my needs, and these fucking red wizards, they're bloody messing things up because of the spells and whatnot. So yeah, it's one of those interesting because especially like we've got these beautiful places like this is the jewels of Thay, right? This place, and it's controlled by someone who isn't a red wizard, and just like I don't care for this hoity-toity stuff, but like red wizards are such a big part of Thay, so I just thought it was an interesting sort of dynamic, I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree. She's got lots of, like, believing that making the poor wealthier will lead to spending and prosperity for the entire country instead of the lofty few is quite, like, okay, I kind of get on board with this person. She's very much like portrayed as someone who's quite like a more positive, like if there was a way you were doing that political intrigue as like an ally potentially towards change in Thay, if that was what you were looking to go for. Additionally, like she will happily hire, work with, and even generally befriend Outlander adventurers, whilst most Archeons would like view them with suspicion and stuff. So it kind of shows that this zone, Priador, as like a potential entry point as well into the Thay, and or learning of it somehow and seeing it, or from some, or like the way to sort of say like, there's a potential somewhere like an ally in there. If you were like if you were like at level 15 and you're doing this you're on the nation's level of dealing with like political intrigue, and that's the sort of campaign you're going down. And it was like, one of the things we're going to try and do is we're going to try and like change Thay, we're going to try and stop the whole, slavery. We're going to try and come in there and sort of like get rid of Szass Tam and sort of just make this land not this evil wizard land, theocracy, but actually, autocracy. We're going to try. The one person we have as like an ally there is this person who's like somehow in, and she, or maybe it's a way to like gain trust, is they're obviously willing to use adventurers. So maybe you go there and you just do some like adventuring stuff for them. Go and clear out one of the Gallon towers, or get something from there for them. One of those things.
Absolutely.
Or try and solve that issue, like undo all the spell plague stuff that's happened there, and then maybe then she'll be on your side, and maybe you can use that influence to try and, I don't know, the world is your oyster sort of thing. If you're going for that sort of campaign, that is, and I know it's a very particular type of campaign. And it could be seen as a bit of like American, like sort of going into other countries and like trying to change their political system, and you're coming in as an outlander to someone else's political system. That's a bigger question to take. But my point is, or maybe she's someone who calls out for you secretly as like, I'm looking for adventures. I'm looking to overthrow Szass Tam. I've had enough of his badness. I want to make this Thay a really lovely place, and that may be the better way to go for it. And she reaches out through like intermediaries to seek aid to sort of liberate Thay from Szass Tam, sort of thing.
It says here she's got a big expansive network of spies, and also they're in the higher circles, but it makes sense that maybe people have gone across the border. She has a wider net in all the governments, other cultures. But I do think it's interesting that if we place her as the sort of a rebellion leader compared to the separatist movement that's outside of Thay, I think that's again, if you're like, I don't want to have yet, because it feels like here she doesn't care for red wizards, whereas before it felt like the same red wizard fighting against themselves.
Well, they're just like, that's just another bad person wanting to take over from the other bad person, isn't it, really? Because that's just a thwarted red wizard who just wants to be the red wizard in charge, not really that they want to make, it doesn't sound like there's new boss, same with the old boss, as I said earlier, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but this person actually could be but having that still in play could be interesting.
Yeah, having these three different sort of things, because like ultimately, if this sort of triangle of like dynamics that we're coming up with, like maybe we're like, God, we want to be on Alone's side, because then we can, it'll be a bit better
in weakening Szass Tam.
Yeah,
you could be looking like you're on the right track. You've weakened Szass Tam, but then, a new challenger enters the arena, sort of thing. Yeah, exactly. And that's when actually what you've done is you've created a power vacuum. Now this person's coming in to fill it, and that's your like your Dark Souls second boss tier level. When you've got
the health bar,
the health bar comes in, you're like, oh fuck, but then it could change from being a more political intrigue, spy networks, inner circle. Maybe one of these, like, I'm thinking this is like not a great example in terms of being a good person, but the sort of end of Godfather Part 1, where Michael Corleone is being the Godfather at the thing, and then he's getting everyone murdered. Like, you could be like, set up this whole plan. You could have all your spies in there, and literally there's a big event, and you get rid of all the res wizards in like one fell swoop, and then you've set up your person second in commands who come in, who then start to try and dismantle it. And that's that's that part one. And then part two is, oh no, other bad wizards now are coming back because they know
Yeah.
Szass Tam is gone, and they're going to test your strength. And this is going to be an actual battle, war, armies on the battlefield fight, rather than subterfuge, sneakies. Could be kind of a cool sort of campaign.
No, I like it. I like it a lot, yeah. Moving on then to our second one of this episode, Pyrados, or in my head, Gyarados. I know that's not how you pronounce it, but I was like, oh yeah, Pyrados, Gyarados. The Bright Heart of Thay. Visually, I can really see this one. It is essentially the city, or the Tharch as well, as always. It's got rolling hills, and it's got little. It's patrolled lightly from the city, which is at its heart, which is what the entire region is named for. And the city is what it's. It's basically it's two distinct cities. It's all like a one that's slowly growing out like a ring from the other. And for some reason, I thought of Baldur's Gate in this. I don't know entirely sure why, but I was thinking because they have the sort of 2 or 3 districts which I have, the sort of one on top.
Tier,
That's the upper tier, which has gates around it, and then it has a sprawling thing of like people going out of it. And so what I found interesting is that sort of top bit is obviously where the nobles are. Everyone's crowded in on the sort of like it just made me think of like everyone fighting for rent space, and I think like places like Spain, all that sort of thing. Like the Airbnbs are just full of like nobles and stuff. About 4,000 people in there called in the central part called the Bright Heart, and then from that you have thousands and thousands of other people around something called the Shield or the Grim Shield. I think its actual name is, and I just thought Again, I can just really visualize that. There's sort of there's some weirdly, I think it's like on a hill or something like that. But this sloping thing as you go up to the top, it gets better and better and better. And then obviously you aren't allowed because of these gates and stuff like that. But then it's just the slums around a very small, very profitable, it's very beautiful part of the town. Like again, maybe this is just me, but I was like, it is like a whitehead on the skin, an acne spot, and it's just waiting for something to break. At this point, I could really visualize this particular Thay compared to some of the others.
There's like a nice little piece of artwork, and it shows this sort of like very grand Romanesque and also like sort of classical in a city with grand Colosseum style buildings and sort of like Acropolis and sort of Egyptian like layout that's sort of more formal, and then you got these like massive like housing that surrounds this wall because it's the outer area is called the Grim Shield.
Yes, yeah.
And the way that it puts it, which is labourers learn if they want to eat regularly, let alone live in any sort of comfort and dignity, they have to go elsewhere and forge lies away from this harsh backwater. As if like this place is so awful. Like if you want any sort of health or happiness, this is not the place to find it.
Yeah. Got cheap rent. That's what it is. It's cheap rent, but you have to travel to work. Yeah.
Yeah, quite far. They've got loads of like there's big mines underneath, and there's also this smelting place. It's really fun. Like I love the idea of this her keep though, which is like fun. But you know what I mean? It's like there's an abandoned there's Red Fist Tower, which is one of them, which has got this really cool idea that it had like enchantment's artifice of like hardened glass, like 9 breakable outer shell. But then that also has a dungeon beneath it. I'm getting these two mixed up then. But there was her keep. I'm trying to find out.
Yeah, so it's right at the bottom. So the Red Fist Tower, the why it's sort of called that, again, as you described, it has this sort of shell around it through various sort of spells and stuff like that. But it looks like a fist rising from the ground. It has these 2 top levels on top of what I think is a very spindly thing. And that is like the main soldiers' barracks, essentially, which I think is really cool. And so I can imagine just having a cool sort of point of view of the land. And then her keep, as you were sort of saying, it is like the now roofless, half-collapsed stone castle tower with attached ramparts that once were closed and got sheds. So this is a place where they were doing smelting. And again, this particular Tharch itself is a sort of hotspot for miners and prospectors. So anything to do with sort of that mining stuff, and then like you're getting the ore and the metals out and then smelt it. But yet now her keep is now abandoned because during the spell plague, monsters broke up through the Underdark. Yeah. And so now one of these, again, another plot hook could be like, you're sent into her keep to recover treasures or to find something for a red wizard or for yourselves. So those two are quite interesting. I think the Red Fist being again, as you said, there's a dungeon underneath it.
That's why I was getting them confused, because that's also got all the monsters that are locked up in it, because there was monsters as well as miscreants once locked up in it. So you could go down there and interface with lots of horrible monsters. But yes, that was it. So the Hercule, though, it does sound like, because there's gems and stuff, so it could be just like a riches bounty to be found down underground, which could be kind of like it's a way to get adventurers down things, isn't it? Is loot.
Yeah.
So but then having it all spell plague, it could be fun.
It also mentions, and it's kind of interesting, this one mentions a few more like actual like places of interest compared to some of the other ones. But yeah, I want to go Lawmonters or Lawmoners.
Yes.
It's another tavern in the dark. But I just thought some call it the Muttering House due to the ever-present droning of a myriad of quiet conversations that take place here at all hours. So basically, I don't know if you've ever been Hamilton, but in London, there's one of the oldest pubs is called the Cheddar Cheese, just off the Strand, and it's just like a deep pub.
Yes, and it is on that. It's off the Strand. It's a very steep road down, and it goes down to the embankment. Yeah, and it's on the left, I think, when you go down, and it has levels, doesn't it? Yeah,
so many levels when you go deep down. It's very. There's no signal in it. It's very cool. No signal in it. So if you're meeting up there, God, make sure someone goes outside and says that we're at this table, because it's so deep. But that's how I imagine it. It's that it's a cold place where people can go and book a table and have these quiet conversations. But it's like a labyrinth maze, essentially. This particular Lawmonters is so I instantly saw it, because again in Lawmonter
I forgot about that place. That's so cool, that place.
It's a very cool place, because I think I seem to remember, like, again, they have lights and stuff like that, but like, again, it could be feel very candle-like, and you go in after a busy day at work, oh Christ, and you're trying to find your booth as you're trying to like hello no so
no, it's very I like it. And that Laumonter became a lich long ago.
Yes.
And he stays in hiding, setting up floating apparitions of himself to talk to clientele, or more often just spy on them from the darkest shadows. just look at you, just having a chat, and you look over like, all right there, hello.
Please review us on TripAdvisor. Yeah. Bye. Ooh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, your appetizers. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, I kind of found it an interesting place. Obviously, horrific place, but in that, like, it's kind of got these the having more of these points of interest made it like, which is lacking in a couple of these other ones. Would be more like required, like wanted from some of the others. But it's an interesting place and a clear delineation of the class system of what's happening in Thay. I think they all do that, but this is a real like architectural expression of it. Do you know what I mean? Unlike some of the others where it's not really described it as such, like the difference between the two classes, it kind of really portrays it here. So if you wanted to get across the horrors of Thay society, it's unfortunately one of the places to do that.
Agreed. The Tharchion here, I feel like, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, feels a bit boring compared to some of the other ones we've met. Again, I'm going to butcher this name completely. Ort Ron Normark, I think. Yeah. A stern and humorless former soldier, this person, shrewd mannerisms are known throughout the whole Tharch, abides by and delivers clear-cut orders and expects them to be followed to the letter, and possesses a drive to maintain orders for Thayans over Outlanders. So again, a very strict regimented folk. I just feel like that's not necessarily, I mean, it talks a little bit about the justice system here. Like there's in the sort of the Grim Shield, it's like, it's just fighting. There's no sort of like, justice. If you get caught of a crime, you're going to probably just be able to keep going and keep committing crimes, whereas victims don't get justice. In the actual Brightheart itself, there's trials and stuff, but even then, it's very rare you get taken to trial because everyone's corrupt. Whereas here, this person is like justice, and I was
anti-corruption, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of feels a little bit at odds. That's really like, brigands, your favourite word, brigands, criminal gangs and invading armies are unwelcome and historically unsuccessful in the Tharch under his hand.
But then yet, it does say he will delight in using adventurers over Thayans to fight at the fore against monsters, gangs, rogues, and wizards. So like, brigands, criminal gangs, and invading armies are I get that. I get that to a certain extent, but he's happy with mercenaries. Which is kind of brigands in some respects. But I guess maybe it's just saying, like, anyone trying to show any danger to the city, no time for that. But if you're here wanting to help, he'd rather use you over his own guard because
he doesn't want to waste resources.
Secondary. Yeah, exactly. To require surplus. Yeah.
He never forgets a face or an indiscretion and is very good at anticipating alliances and schemes and sending troops and spies to the right spot at the right moment to thwart them or at least see what unfolds, so he knows what's happening in the darkest shadows of the shield and the remote valleys of the mountains. slow to anger, but patient and never gives up. Again, yes, I don't know if it
Not
just
enough.
fits. It doesn't fit with this place. I don't think. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like,
No, I get what you mean, because it's like
yeah,
this is a really disparate city, which has got a really horrible conditions for loads of people. But he's like anti-corruption, like that's what he cares about. It's kind
yeah,
of like, and this over efficiency thing. You're like, well, I guess in some respects, it's like I just want to keep. It just feels like then lawlessness in the Grimshield would be unwarranted. Like that would be unfounded, and
yeah.
therefore, it wouldn't be so like it wouldn't be portrayed the way it is. Is that what you mean?
Again, I don't know anything about this person. I don't know anything about the history of Thay, but I wonder if maybe a paragraph could have been inserted here about like how I would portray it that he is the new Tharch, literally been installed because the other one got killed or deposed
Yes.
or ran away or escaped. Like we talked about it before about Szass Tam banning people from leaving. This person was like, fuck it, left, and
Yeah.
then got killed on the border or something like that. And now Szass Tam's like, right, I've installed this person into doing it. So that's the only thing I
To
can say.
bring the corruption to head and sort of like,
Pop that
bring law and
pimple.
order.
Yeah.
Yeah, pop that pimple.
So
Exactly.
that was the only thing. Because I was like, how long has this person been doing that? Because he's not doing a good job. But
Yeah.
again, maybe you have that sort of, if he's the newly installed Tharch, again, that stuff with the Red Fist Tower. Maybe there's those people who've always been there. Maybe that sort of thing, like you're jarring against new leadership, and we've done it this way this whole time. So again, that could be something interesting about political structures, but also with sort of law enforcement and corruption. Again, your mileage may vary with all the stuff that's happening in the world just now, but yeah, it could be something to interesting play with. And I quite like this Tharch itself. Like I said, I can really see and visualize it compared to some of the other ones, and with the places of interest as well. I was like, oh, I feel like I could run something here, whereas some of the other ones couldn't think of anything necessarily.
There were some interesting points, but actually, yeah, that kind of it's a bit of a damp ending to that one, isn't it? The thought.
Absolutely.
I kind of agree with that. The thought. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Survey, on the other hand, surprisingly more interesting than it looks on the surface, I'd say,
Yeah.
which is the next one. Because it starts out as like, oh, it's a strip of poor soil hill country between the northern edge of the plateau and Lake Mosentiers. It's right in the north. And it's been always Thay's military wall of ready spells and swords, which is kind of cool. What they've done is frequent patrols find their base in the remains of the fortified city of Cirthe itself, a wall settlement that grew around the original castle of Cirthe, and it's just mainly a home for fish folk. So you sort of think, oh, it's got no natural harbour. It's all a bit of a backwater place, right?
Yeah.
But then it builds on this into actually like it's got this very crime-ridden shanty town that like there's all these fish folk there like doing like deals and trades. There's like this fortress of Sir Towers, which
many towers,
rise like the brutal stone prow of a huge ship in the center, and they're pointed towards this other city, bristling with catapults, trebuchets, and ballistae. It's kind of it's got like quite a smelly place, and it's hidden. It's got a real reek, and the very which I thought was quite funny.
Stinks, this place. Yeah,
Absolutely stinks. It's so badly that you like lose your sense of smell if you live there for too long. But then it's got really cool things hiding away in it. But anyway, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, yeah, to me, it feels like a no man's land, but it's a swamp. It's like I can imagine again, it really harbors on about the water stuff here. That it's filled with water, but there's no currents, there's no ports or anything like that. So that the idea of still water, stagnant water, and I can just imagine it's full of flies. You're traipsing away. It's just horrible. I assume it's quite humid as well, and I'd never really thought of like a war zone technically or a war zone buffer being one that's water, but like when you think of like World War One and obviously the trenches and stuff, when it rained, it was like miserable. Here, I just imagine it's really hot and that swampiness and the mangroves and all that sort of thing, and just God, what a horrible place to be stationed if you were like this sort of like Cold War to stop any other sort of invasion forces coming in. That's what I was imagining. And like it says here, it's always been squalid and reeking of decay. This is the city itself, I believe. A sandbar jutted east to enclose a shelter of the Arm Lake forms an excellent natural harbour for small craft, but no currents or other water movements scour out this backwater. And it stinks of all the dying plants and fish that rot here. So yeah, that's two quite horrific smells. And then I could just imagine the heat of that just being really pungent. So compared to maybe the last one where we saw the visual thing, here it's really playing on the senses quite a bit. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I feel from the description at least.
It's got like a really interesting backbone. Not only does the Tharchiness must pay for food supplies sent to the Tharch. So Cirthe is often a hungry city. The wealthy and powerful know to maintain their own larder cellars, and soldiery often eat in the castle stores, and the shelves of all food shops lay bare, leaving the poor Western to fend for themselves from what fishing boats bring in and what can be gleaned wild from the fringes of the Surmass and the bleak hills. It's just like, oh, it's so bleak. It's so barren, and you have to pay for the supplies. Like, it's like Thay doesn't even care about it, even though it's like a super thing. But it's got both of us are probably going to like this. It's got in the sinister wetlands, the maze of bogs. Hidden amongst there is a group of coven of green hags who invite and control a succession of black dragons to lair there,
cool.
maneuvering the worms to confronting and fighting formidable intruders. I kind of love that. I'm like, that is so cool. The hags keep score, desiring to take a greater toll of hunters than the hunters take of their beloved beasties, which is kind of interesting. And people do this hunting, don't they?
Yeah, we mentioned this last time, this idea of again, if you had a party of red wizards going, our hobby is going to find a feral beast in Cirthe and bring its head back. Again, what a cool adventure hook that you've been hired to be a bodyguard of a red wizard, and something goes wrong because again, it describes these bogs and these swamps being dangerous enough to swallow horses whole. So again, very never-ending story. So I was there going, whoa, this is quite dangerous. So again, the environment is the danger here, along with the creatures. It's not like a person per se, which I think again is just very different to what we've been looking at so far, which is these political structures, these individuals who are controlling stuff. It's actually a red wizard go in, but one fatal slip and that's it. They're done. And then how do you get home?
Exactly. To point that, it says these lost spires, which are ruins of more than a dozen overgrown spires, which were mansions that used to overlook the river, had red wizards who got tired of defending and rebuilding them against brigand raids, invasions, and the black dragons. So you're just kind of like, yes, this is actually a really desert, dangerous place. And red wizards go there to have secret conversations, a bit like, we're just going to go into this abandoned place, teleport, have a chat in the tower, top of the tower, and then quickly go out. But maybe you could stumble across that, or them within a battle or fight, or they teleport in and there's actually a dragon already layered up in the place they usually went to, or something like that.
This completely feels, this lost spy thing feels completely like an ambush site, right? That you've organized a meeting somewhere and they're teleporting in, and then suddenly there's a spell duel happening and that person's dead, and then you're now
stuck. One of your Godfather moments is where one of the Tharchions has their meetings in this tower, and you set up a meeting with them and your ally Tharchion, and they go for a meeting there. The minute they turn up, boom.
Poof, absolutely.
Who are all these people? Blah, 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 blah. Stabby.
Yeah, no. And on top of that, just again, unusual place to have a meeting. It's just this horror. You look out the window, this vine covered, a broken window, and it's just awful. So again, and it reminds me of so many places where we see people building beautiful houses that get taken back by nature or destroyed in some way. So again, I can really visualize it, these abandoned places, these abandoned mansions and houses, and maybe finding bits there from the previous owners. So they've just left it. They're like, oh, fuck it, it's not worth it. Teleport out because there's a dragon attack.
Yeah.
The other place of interest it mentions is Duska's Cave, which is again a similar sort of thing in the sense of it's a temporary lair for brigands, all trolls, and other opportunistic monsters. The sort of name of it is quite interesting. So Duska was a Thayan merchant whose head was eaten by one such monster. But there's frequent rumors of local merchants who've retained their heads thus far and dared to establish regular trading expeditions with the denizens of the Underdark. So this is a handoff point essentially. But I just like the idea that it's such a shame he passed away. But we'll in his honor, we'll call it his Duska's Cave, right? We'll see you next week for the trade handoff, right? Yeah. It's just I think it's a weird thing to name someone after, perhaps. It's in memoriam, but we're still going to use it for trade stuff. It's different to a bench, No,
I agree with that. The other thing that I think that I really liked about this, but it's awful again as well, is that the Red Wizards pit the poor and fisherfolk against each other in feuds that her spies and the covert agents promote. Therefore, the Tharchians keeps crime in the city personal and low level, rather than the more complex intrigues that play the other Tharches. And you're just like, social media much sort of thing, like the sort of
Holy
like
shit, yeah.
very, like influencing people to fight amongst people so they don't start rising up against the 1%. It's very much that sort of thing, isn't it? It's like very much taking on the nose of what's happens in the real world a bit. Like, you keep fighting amongst yourselves about things and we will steal all your money whilst you're not looking. The leader, Alzaria Ardesserion,
Yeah.
is very much ahead of the game in terms ahead of everyone, playing chess whilst everyone else is playing checkers a little bit, sort of thing.
100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nothing scares her, and her every decision, word, or act is for her own survival first, obedience to Szass Tam second, and the betterment of Thay third. Which the priorities related to Sir make sense. Like, how can you be like, we shall increase the infrastructure here in this swamp? No, you can't. You're fighting against the elements here, isn't it? There's no point. But
Yeah.
I did think it was quite interesting. Like, she has this. First of all, it says she wears a habitual frown. I was like, resting bitch face there, this person. And she had, no ambition to supplant any red wizard, and no interest in wider politics of fate, unless those wider issues take an interest in her. So I thought that just like, you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone.
Yeah.
And the sort of phrase that the residents of Survey say is like, she sees through deceit before you commit it. Like, she knows you so well. And you know what? As a big stereotype this is, it's like, it's your mum. You know you've done something wrong. And she just looks at you and she goes, upstairs. And you're like, what? Upstairs. You've done something. I can see it in your face. That's how I would imagine in terms of like properness, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But she's got interesting background as well, as that like she comes from a long, proud lineage of like nobles, but spent her youth as a rebel and an adventurer, which I think is another, like, if we're playing this campaign, this wider campaign of like trying that potentially she is like a reluctant ally or a potential way, like, she cares a lot about herself more than Thay.
Yeah.
You know, can work with all who put Szass Tam Thay first, but she's like, you could see that really she's not too keen on residence. She was a rebel. Maybe in the past she was a rebel with the other Tharchon, and maybe that's a way to sort of like, remember what you fought for? You know, like, look at what you've become, you know, like that kind of thing. You wanted to change this place. You know, maybe there's a like, and that could be like either a reluctant ally, an ally that changes, or the one that you think is on your side and is your eventual backstabber, because actually at the end of the day, Szass Tam's going to offer her more than you can and more protection. And like, so you like, maybe they did have this past when they were both like, saw a better Thay, saw a better way for people to be, but really at the end of the day, she's out for herself over those ideals. And that's like what inevitably like is like the downfall of this campaign, or like is a way that you've got to deal with, or the little switcheroo at the end, like all the other Tharchions are down, it's just you and her and the other Tharchioness like together are going to take down Szass Tam, and she steps across the line and stands opposed instead of with you. And I don't know.
Yeah, I think because it's interesting. But for me, when you say rebel and adventurer, like instantly I'm like, oh yeah, it's that sort of like, we'll fight for this and thing. But I wonder, why would she take this position? Why, you know, if she's a rebel? And I think it's exactly what you say. She's like, well, I like the comfort of it. I benefit off the system because of my noble lineage. So like, maybe I'm acting out, but then at some point it goes, hey, you need to take over. So she went, fine, and then doesn't do anything.
I mean, you could play it that way, right? I kind of just thought, like, it says, unlike a few survivor kings, she has known hunger, the pain of wounds unhealed, and hardship. Maybe she took the rebels route and then realized, like, and did all the hard work and then realized it was in vain and went, fuck it, I'm out. You know, no one's helping me. No one's going to help me get this way. I'm out for my, you know, like, you could play it as like, I've changed my mind. Fuck it. My brothers and sisters, they're all living the life. Why am I doing this? No one wants to join this cause. You know, or it could be like, I'm just rebelling because I'm a rich kid who wants to rebel. I like that story equally as much. You could play it both ways, I think. I
agree. I think that's what, I'm just trying to think, is there a phenomenon or something like that where people do that sort of thing where they go, well, I've known pain, and they deliberately go and do stuff like this to be like, even though I'm privileged, I know what it's like. And I think that's the sort of phenomenon. That's what, as I see it, it's like, well, I've known pain.
Slumming it.
Slumming it. Exactly that. Just because. Both of those are quite just interesting things. But I would love to know, you know, what was the turning point? Why did she get there? Because that's the thing that I think the players would find interesting, because they're like, oh, well, why didn't they do anything? Like, you find old, like, I don't know, posters or articles that talk about her deeds. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Someone mentioned that a lot of like it was I don't know how like psychologically or like valid this point is. I haven't researched it, but it made me think about it, which was like it was questioning like why do people like in privileged positions like become so like why are people getting so enamored by some of these like social justice things and wokeness and stuff like that? And they're saying, well, it's because they've never had anything to battle against.
that's it.
Right?
Yeah.
They've never had that to battle against. So this is their hill to die on. So they can feel that catharsis or something within them of like, I need to like rally around a cause that is against them. Like, oh, this sort of like, like everyone hates men or like, like this thing. Cause it's like, you've never felt that you want to, it's kind of like perversely sort of it's like a perversion of it. It's kind of like I don't want to use the word kink, but you know what I mean? It's that kind of like, I need to also revel in that sensation because I haven't been privileged to it because of my privilege. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So like,
yeah.
And so there's part of that. I don't know the whole scientific behind it, but it made me think, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. These people wanting to feel like they are hard done by because
you encapsulated exactly what I'm thinking. It's like, it's not for the betterment for everyone. It's like, well, this benefits me because I feel like I need to do this.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's a little bit white savior complex.
But also I can feel pain. Like I can revel in pain as well. It's kind of slightly is that the right word? Masochistic.
Yeah.
When you want to hurt yourself sort of thing. And it's sort of like, yeah.
The other thing I want to quickly mention before we move on to Thay is that, again, we tend not to cover them too much, the sort of role-playing stuff, but I want to mention the flaw for this person, this stage, which is I have a profound weakness for sweets and candied delicacies, which, again, fits into that rich kid sort of thing.
Yeah.
I just thought the idea of, like, a sweets, like, Turkish delight, that's always my rich person sweet, all that sort of thing, in a swamp, like in a horrible smelly place, and there's just someone, again, you're having a meeting in these lost spires with this person, and they've got a very nice chair, but everything's is awful around them, the walls are cracked, etc., and they're just eating sweets as you're talking to them. I just thought it was just a really interesting like flaw, and like we talked about it before, there's like, oh, I like delicate cheeses, and later on there's like, I think it's in the feature, no, I think it is in the next one, in Thay, that thought, it's like, I am a masochist, I am someone who loves inflicting pain on myself and other people. So I just thought that was an interesting, like, I have a profound weakness for sweets. I was like, oh, me too.
Sadism, it is not just for breakfast. So that's just
that's the next one. Yes,
other people. Yeah,
so good.
So yeah, no, I did like that. I also kind of think like thematically you could work that really well as like workers who work in like sewers and stuff like that put like eucalyptus on their nose or on a cloth so you could say that she's constantly got like a mint, like I'm thinking a humbug or something like that, just constantly on the go. So she has this sort of smell of mint, or like maybe that opens your senses too much, but like some sort of candy but flavored, very rich, maybe like you got it, you're in America now, the cinnamon chewing gum, I forget what it's called, red something.
I know what you mean. I've never had it. Yeah.
When you come back from the States, if you can get me some, I love that stuff, by the way. So if you next come back,
I'll make
that's
a big
list. That's my only like thing I'd want from the States.
Hey, as long as you take me for Five Guys, we're done.
Lifesavers as well.
Lifesavers, yeah.
Yeah, so, but those kind of things, like very heavily scented sweets, I could imagine them eating and making that as well. Like, not only do they want the sweetness, but they also like it because it like flavors the air a bit better.
It hides the musk around them, almost like again, I know it's not, but like sort of like it's a glamour. Like it's not. It doesn't smell of shit. What are you talking about? It's very nice. The cloves, these sort of like lavender type thing. Yeah, for me, I can imagine her popping like love hearts or Parma violets. Just and having that smell there. All right, Thay mounts.
Oh, a big one.
Oh Lord, okay.
Actually, it's not actually as big as some. It's not. Well,
it feels big, but I feel not much happens in it, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Thay Mount is sort of the most famous sort of Tharch in Thay, the height of Thay, because that is where Szass Tam resides, essentially. And the highest elevation Tharch in the realm consists of this Ruhamar plateau and a range of volcanic mountains that rise up from it. So yeah, very villain-esque, villain-coded. Like,
oh my gosh, yeah, like in a dormant volcano. Like, could you get more? Yeah.
Could you get even more evil? But what I like about it, again, it does say, like, obviously, this is where Szass Tam resides, and like all the other thoughts, it feels very much like how MPs in the UK operate, and I'm sure other people operate as well around the world in political systems. But like, they have to have their own residences here to be
Yeah.
close to Szass Tam, so in case there's meetings and
Center
stuff
of
like that.
power. Yeah.
Yeah, even though they hate this place and they don't want to be here, but they well,
Yeah.
for a show of force, we'll all be in these
Yeah.
incredible, like, these mountainous,
Yeah.
volcanic mansions, and they're like, oh, I can't wait to go back to,
Well, it's like
Theodore, you know what I
it's
mean?
very much like Versailles, I guess, in a sense. Like, the king took the court of France out of Paris, where everyone had a house, and then said, "No, I'm going to even more like demanding of them is like, no, you own. There's too much ownership of that. I need to take you somewhere where I am completely in control here." Which
Yes.
was Versailles. So you now have to be in this random bit of town outside of Paris, and you have to come here, and you cannot leave without my permission. Sort of thing. I mean, it's not as far as that, but Versailles was pretty much, it's that kind of like Sun King ideology of like, like the leader of the country going, like in the UK, say, going, I'm going to make the middle of nowhere in Yorkshire the seat of power now, right? Like that's kind of what it is, because it's not the capital city. It's like, I'm going to make, well, it's a bit close, it's close enough, but it's like, I'm making Kent now the seat of power, and you all have to now come here to do things.
Yeah,
and so everyone just has to then start building houses in Kent because that's what they need to do. And that's kind of what, and it's kind of wild because of that, it is still wild, as in like it's still like a very naturalistic land. There's not many towns. It says there's loads of. It says the wild high is roamed by gnolls, orcs, and a few goblins who like forage, farm, and hunt and try and keep well away because they go, you're good fighters, come and fight for us, sort of thing.
Yes.
And they're like, I don't want to do that. And
absolutely not, yeah.
Exactly. And so like, but that's like one of the things is highly trained, well-equipped orc and orog soldiers are the foremost legions amongst Thay's army and dwell in the passages and caverns on the south and southeast sides of the mountains, ready at hand to defend or be commanded by the Solkirs for like a defense of Thay Mount. So like, I want to, something that hasn't like come up yet in this, but like this whole idea of like, but because of this, putting it up on Thay Mount, they're creating this like like they've got the borders completely surrounded with like Sir Thay's got all these like just spells ready to go off, like minefields basically. There's other ones we come onto. I can't we got there yet, like Gauros, I think, isn't it? Which has got all these other things going on, like ready to go. And then it's like that's the first defense, and then it gets to like High Thay, and they've got this whole army ringing it, just ready. Like they're constantly on alert of invasion. I don't know. It's brought up a bit, but it was just kind of
they're always in a state of war. That paranoia, that sort of like from both outside forces and within. Obviously, this is at the part of where we had the La Air, the change is still sort of happening right now. Yeah, and then it talks about like it's interesting because again, the entire region is arid and barren due to the ash falls, but outside of this immediate area, Thay Mount consists of verdant. There you go, another drinking thing. Drink for every time the verdant's mentioned in this book. Grasslands dotted here and there with pine forests that were once far more extensive. So again, I was thinking of obviously our friend Thay from Backwater Bastards, where they are in the world. There's active volcanoes very close to home, which is obviously terrifying for us, but it's just a natural thing for them.
Which is about the locals being like, "No, I'm just staying here.
Yeah,
like,
this is my house."
There's like lava going down the road. Nope,
all good.
I'm fine. We're all good. It's not coming to my house. You're like, okay.
But I can imagine for again that sort of thing where a lot of the stuff is now barren and then suddenly like, and here's a little oasis of Greenland. Here's a pine forest. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? It feels so disparate. And again, I can just really visualize this sort of the change in sort of climate. It talks about as well that the weather is strictly controlled by weather spells worked by these red wizards. And I think I mentioned this either last episode or the episode before, where the red wizards will restrict almost all the rainfall to nighttime to discourage illicit activities and to keep the daylight hours dry for the enjoyment and full use by the Fae's wealthy and powerful. There's that idea like people don't want to go out at night because it's cold, it's rainy, and so they're not going to break into people's houses, or they're not going to launch a full-scale invasion under the cover of darkness. So I just thought that was really interesting, of like using weather to control people's movements, you know, people's like schedules, because no one likes to get wet, and they're like, oh, I don't want to get rained upon. Like, but then what does that mean if you're like, okay, we are going to do a full-scale invasion, but it's tipping down with rain? Can't really make yourselves invisible because you'll be shown where you are in the rain. Do you transport yourself? You know, like, how do you navigate just constant rainfall where people could probably watch your movements if you were like invisible or like
invisible? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. Yeah,
When you said it the first time, I was like, oh, that's such a good idea.
it is a good idea. But we just live in Britain where it constantly rains.
It constantly rains, so we're just used to it. Yes.
Yeah, we're like, but now you know that you can always do that. The sort of I can't remember what it's called, but the conspiracy is like, that we're being controlled by the lizard people, and they're controlling the weather, so that we always have to stay indoors unless it's summer. We go outside.
I like this. Some really cool, because of the nature of this place, like Szass Tam and this sort of magical essence here. There's a couple of things of not only is this is an area where in the deep caverns underneath, Szass Tam just farts about trying out shit, and so has blown up the insides of caverns. He also leaves hanging spells cast long ago to lurk wherever he wants to trigger an instant when his attention seems to be elsewhere, or just to screw people. Sounds awful.
Yeah.
And then these two things of the Athora and the Doom Vault, which are Doom Vault's a great name.
Great name.
The Athora is this rock, and it seemed very intrinsic to the whole of Thay, because it is a rock that is, as it says, it's a greater secret that happens to be a mighty node of magic, a source of magical energy so strong and restless that it has made the mountain and much of the plateau around it radiate strong magic. Its presence makes sentient creatures born and living in this arch for long periods have an increased aptitude for the art. So it is actually down to this rock that Thay's prevalence of magical beings and arcanists comes from this rock itself, which is a secret, but is again one of those things that you could utilize if you know about it to undo the power maybe of Szass Tam, or it could be
It says he often visits it to stand fascinated or to renew himself when weak or damaged or uncertain, but dares not do so for reasons only known to himself. So again, there's so much possibilities there where, again, I don't know how you'd do it, but that sort of thing, going we've weakened him, quick, let's go ambush him at this Athora. But then you have your own battle. But I wondered, if he doesn't stay there long, does not do more so than what does that mean? Is too much power and he explodes?
Maybe,
that's sort of
the radiation, the radiance plane, for example. Radiance.
That idea of if you're playing with that idea of radiation, that you could just see him suddenly just withering and bits of him falling off, because he's an undead lich, so maybe there's more weakness to it if you just stand and take the full force of it in that state. I don't know. It's interesting.
I know. I think it's really cool. Maybe maybe it undoes maybe it undoes something to him. Maybe it would undo his lichdom. Maybe because it would greater restore him. It would beyond remove curse or whatever. It does this it de-ages him so much so that it undoes the lich thing, that he's now just a person again, that he's oh fuck, now I'm actually too healed. Do you know what I mean?
So the positive plane of energy that we've talked about before.
Exactly.
You are covered so much that you just burst and become a light being.
Exactly.
I like that. Really cool, really cool. And the Doom Vault, let's see what it says here. So it said the Doom Vault is the creation of a now dead red wizard, Kazit Gull, whose fascination and life's work was to explore and study the most famous and deadly dungeons of Faerun. I mean, what a passion, It's what do you do? It's I love dungeons, Eventually, he began constructing his own vast labyrinth beneath Faemount and made himself a lich in order to finish his work. Everyone's always wanting to be a bloody lich these days. He constructed features of the Doom Vault and applied enchantments to it to lure adventurers so he could devour their souls to empower his phylactery. And today, the Doom Vault remains a dungeon a dangerous trap-filled labyrinth defended by the Red Wizards, golems, those who obey them, resident undead, and various bounds and unleash monsters. So it's, again, for me, it is just another Tomb of Annihilation, Tomb of Horrors, but specifically for Thay is what I was thinking. And I guess I don't know what else it could add to it, that maybe this person is still no longer, they're now dead, so presumably it hasn't worked, and maybe, I don't know, you have to go rescue someone that's already in there. I guess that's the only thing. It's what else would make it different to other lich dungeons? You know what I mean? Great name. I agree with you. I think I like the name, but why Doom Vault? Is it just you are doomed? You'll never get out. You wake up, you're already there, and then you try to your adventure is to get out of this place. Perhaps, I don't know.
I think what you would do is maybe just it's a dangerous trap-filled labyrinth defended by red wizards. I would just make it as an interesting. It's a place that's still got all these sort of White Plume Mountain-esque sort of rooms in it, or Tomb of Horrors, really low sorts of level sort of dungeons of super crazy traps, super crazy sort of things going on that you have to like overcome and think through. Plus the fact there's red wizards there. But I would possibly have that it has something of import still in there. You know, like why have they? And maybe it's the phylactery of Szass Tam. Like he's placed it at the center of it because it's like, well, someone's already started this project, might as well use it. Do you know what I mean? That kind of, well, you know what I mean? That kind of theory of well, someone's already started making the Tomb of Horrors. Why not just use the rest of it to then store my phylactery in there?
Yeah,
and I've got some really, you know, and then and you've got some hanging spells that if the red wizards turn against you, you just blow them up or something like that, or you know. Like some sort of thing that keeps, but that's where you put it, or at least it's got some form of important element there.
Yeah.
I wonder though if merging the two together, the Athora and the Doomvault, would make it more powerful because it's like this really important artifact of Thay was found by this red wizard that maybe was the leader and decided that it is unguarded, you know, and therefore built huge labyrinthine traps and everything all the way to its source to stop anyone outside of Thay or who didn't know the combinations, which is whoever is the leader of Thay knows the way through to protect it. Would make more sense, you know, because that's like, and it powers all these spells are more overcharged because of this magical artifact at the center of it, which is this rock, I guess.
I like that better, because I just feel like it's like, maybe this is just my thing about liches, right? It's like, okay, you want to put the phylactery, understandably, in a safe place. Why would that be a dungeon full of monsters who, again, maybe it's just I see it as like secure bank vault, you know, and you put your things in various little cubby holes, right? I just like the idea of like, as I'm going, okay, it's my monthly visit to make sure it's still okay. Hang on, blah, 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 you know, killing all these creatures to get in and go, shh. Yep, it is there. Okay, back out we go. Blah, 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 like killing these creatures on the way out. I like the idea that you follow Szass Tam in. We've talked about this before, like the reverse dungeon. You follow or sneak in and you see Szass Tam dealing with all the combinations of stuff and disable the traps, whatever. And you follow through after have the big fight in front of the Athora with the phylactery, all that sort of thing. Somehow manage to kill Szass Tam, you go, great. But all the traps now reset, and then you have to fight your way back out of this horrific secure vault, you know, like I think that could be an interesting one, again, a very high level and also a bit of a slog perhaps. You're just like, oh god, we need a rest, we'll become liches at this point, like we'll take over this phylactery, you know.
Like the phylactery itself in its inherent nature is a like really like, oh okay, so I've got to think of somewhere to put this thing, you know what I mean? And like some of the best ones are the really random esoteric ones, like it's in a pen, it's just in the pen they use or something, because there's something about it being right in front of you more somehow powerful. But then that's so done now. It's that we're in postmodernism, we're in like hypermodernity or whatever it is, because like everyone now knows that's the thing. Like you don't put your like in the 70s you put it behind the Tomb of Horrors, and then it was like the 90s everyone went, oh, it's a bit of a joke. All right, it's in the pen in front of you, right? You know, when we got into the sort of postmodern era and then now everyone's so aware of the postmodern era, they're like, you see Szass Tam carrying this quill around with him, you're like, that's his phylactery, I steal it and break it, and you're like, oh fuck. So now it's got to be like something even more esoteric, which is like, you know what I mean? Because we all know that it's like we're all looking for we're all pyros now. We're all like fucking looking for
where is it? It'd have to be something that is akin to, in my head, Bitcoin, right? Or that sort of thing. It has to be like, it's not a physical object, it's something, well, it has to be, it has to have something so you could dispel it perhaps. But I just like the idea
it needs to be like, it needs to not even be like, it's you. That's the new hypermodernity, is that the actual next level is it's not the obvious thing. It's the big twist is like, well, it's you. And you're like,
has to be,
and you're like, what? And it's like, well, if you want to kill my phylactery, you must kill yourself because I embody, like, which is then a bit, okay, maybe it's a bit Harry Potter.
It's very hot. It's very, I was going to say, very hard.
I just realised that now, is it? So that's already done. Fuck that.
Well, no, I mean, to be fair, that is like, there was 7 parts to it. But again, we've had, collecting the 7 parts of the rod from, oh god, with the not Szass Tam, the other one, Vecna, the Eva Vecna. So yeah, I think there's I like the idea of like changing it to be something that could be anything.
Infinity Stones, isn't it? It's like the bloody. We've all done. That's been done quite a lot. So it's kind of like, what do you do with it now? It's so being done that you're just like, well, you might as well just put it behind a bloody wall of wizards. You know what I mean? Like that's at the end of the day. You know, you might as well just put it in the Tomb of Horrors because there's because like that's the obvious, simplest, like, it's fucking hard to get.
It's here. Yes. Boo, boo,
Yeah.
boo, boo. Yeah.
Or it's inside the body of a space whale. I forgot what they're called. Like the space whales and Spelljammer. Or it's in the Spelljammer, which when you go to the Spelljammer, Spelljammer's a good place, actually, because when you're on the Spelljammer, you are instantly charmed, where you cannot harm the Spelljammer. So maybe that's that's my plan.
Yeah. Oh,
that's what I'd put it.
That's where you put it, in a Spelljammer.
In the Spelljammer, the big manta ray, because when you're there, it automatically stops you from being able to kill it.
That's cute. I like that. The Thatchian of this place, Eldrun Maranta. She says, My ranter. I was getting like, my ranter. My ranter, I choose you.
I liked it.
A thin-lipped, cold, and vicious man of a few clipped words, but many grudges. What a great title. But again, a few clipped words means that for me, I'm like, you're monosyllabic. You say like 3 things and like kill them. That sort of vibe. Like, so I like that you don't have long, big speeches necessarily, not big, long villain monologues, but known to be malevolent and sadistic. This is one you were talking about before. It's like, sadism is not just for breakfast, which is a fucking wild phrase, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the quote, "You are right to fear me, I'm watching you."
Yeah.
And he's called Myron the Tyrant. I highlighted that. I like that. And it's just like, there's no corruption because they're all like, just sees all and punishes more, as it says. And he uses a metal spike whip. He's not a very nice person.
No.
But he's kind of losing his marbles as well. It says like he's becoming a bit too paranoid. His grip of reality is not as firm as it was. And so there's something there that's like, I'm just thinking, if you're looking to like see the weaknesses in Thay, you're trying to exploit them in your campaign, that's like one of them. Sort of play, like, seems like because of this, it feels like there's someone that could be manipulated. Do you know what I mean? Quite easily. Like, as in, unlike other than that, are all very much quite overly aware of everything that's going on. This person, because of their insatiable sort of like wrath, for their sort of sin, I guess we want to use as like one of the 7 deadly ones, then it's something that can be exploited in the sense of like, do you know what they did? Or grassing on people, on the people that act, you could manipulate them against their own, against the people that are actually on their side by becoming a trusted advisor somehow to them or something like that. Do you know what I'm just like, I've started becoming this political intrigue person. I'm just trying to see the ways through. Like, how can I take down Thay,
Yeah, but I agree. I think like anything like that where who's paranoid about that stuff, like again, he has all these spies and stuff, and like compared to some of the previous Archions that we looked at, they this particular person like will layer on like doesn't trust outlanders, but if you convince them, hey, something's not right, because they are fanatically loyal to Szass Tam, just a little seeds of doubt, because I feel this person, like, again, they are violent, but more importantly, they, this metal spike whip, right, they test on himself publicly before lashing a miscreant, which I think is it's like a word of warning to everyone around them. So I like the idea that you can't predict what this person's going to do, but if you push them in the right direction, they'll just go off, But
I think that's it. But I think that's exactly it. And I think it's because they rely so much on those spies, and it feels like the grip of reality is not quite there. I think if you pretended like you took on the disguise of a spy, or you were a druid who could or you could have like greater polymorph sort of spell. You kill the spy, you take on the guise of the spy, you become the trusted advisor, that's the way, and then you start telling them stuff about other people. Because they're so paranoid, they would just trust. There's sort of, ironically, in the paranoia, there's the things that they hold on to so dear. They're spies that they, it's it's a classic trope you kind of see in like movies of like characters doing that. It's something you could play on, as in like feed that paranoia the way you want it to be fed. If you could get into that position of like being a council, you know what I mean? Like, you couldn't go in as like an outlander and be like, hey, these guys over here doing the trouble. You'd have to like, it'd be a hard fought way in, but it's like it's I don't know, you start thinking of like a psychopath when you think of these guys. I mean, you have to start thinking, I don't know, it's a bit like that, isn't it? You kind of like, when you're being a GM, you're like, how can
you write these notes and go, okay, this guy completely bonkers, this guy also completely bonkers, this guy it's clever but also completely bonkers.
But how can we overcome this sort of thing?
All right, the penultimate one. The
Yes.
That's all her, the future of Thay. This is yet another a border defense region. Hilly countryside. Not verdant. Ooh,
No,
don't
not
drink
yet.
there. Not yet. It has no cities and no named settlements on map. So again, it's just a piece of land. This again is that sort of thing where I do see it as more of a no man's land. Why would you be here necessarily? Maybe you're being smuggled over the border or smuggling things
Yeah.
over the border. That kind of vibe. There are secret forts in abundance here, which I always think is quite fun. Again, like if you're like hiding out there or meeting rebellion folks, maybe you do like a meeting there.
Yeah.
The land, here we go, is filled with berries of all types, and nearly all flora is safely edible. I'm like, what a weird thing to say. Because I feel like maybe again, if you've got druids in the party or anything like that, be like, look, I have a feast, and it's just like a couple of berries in your hand. Birds are plentiful, and the children in the inns and hill forts are sent out daily with baskets of stone to fling and bring down enough fowl for stew pots. So again, you have almost like I want to say pastoral. I say pastoral. I mean, quite a grim thing to kill these birds with the children. But I don't know. I'm just kind of a weird sort of vibe compared to what we've literally come from the big villain active volcano to like how lovely. Quick, let's stone some crows. That's like get the birds for dinner.
Yeah. But then I think it all kind of leads into one thing. And I think it comes from the fact that it was devastated by the Battle of Thalasar when the demon Eltab, which I imagine where Eltabar gets its name from, was summoned. Most of the Thebes Tharch is haunted after fighting was done. The Tharch was tried as one vast graveyard. And I think it's very fertile land because it's just fed with dead bodies, unfortunately. But like it's fertile, through death grows growth, the circle of life, all that sort of stuff. So this is why it's so abundant in life, because of this very fertilized land. But then on top of that, it says that then there's the rumor is that Szass Tam intends to make the graveyard battlefield, one of this Tharch erupt with the masses of undead and invade Mulholland, the nearing things, sweeping the living before them and slaughtering them. No evidence has been discovered to support this, but the rumor carries weight. And I'm kind of like, yeah, that's true. That's so what he would do. Like, that is so, like, I would even put it down to Szass Tam to have summoned the demon, to have people fight actually make it that, like, the other country had to fight this demon. They all died, and he thought, that's that sorted for another 1,000 years. If I ever need that, we're sorted.
It's like, okay, I'm just going to check and maintain the defenses. Okay, let's summon another demon. Oh, fighting. Oh, no. Okay, dead. All right, got rid of the demon. Get them here. Perfect. Yeah, you just topping up the resources.
Topping up resources of undead ready to go. It's kind of like quite terrifying. And then the other thing I love about this, again, is that red wizards regularly send their apprentices and unannounced to Thalasar to spell hunt monsters with instructions to impress everyone. Just because I like this idea of it's like, because it's on that border, it's like, in the world and horrifically and unfortunately, and this is the thing, like, it's got to remember these things of like that it is a terrible thing that in the world that people do these sort of marches on borders and show their military might. It's kind of the sort of Monty Pythonness of it's like, just go and shoot some spells around, show them what you're worth.
Yeah,
just go and just like, be a little bit crazy and overdo it, overplay it, use time stop even though you don't need to, there's kind of like a slight humor in that as well.
Yeah.
It's like making a bit of a show,
Yes, go on, show our might, and because then you're like, what else have they got there? Yeah, don't look too closely.
Or you get hired by a red wizard to help them on this thing, and you're like, they're just slinging fireballs, and they're like, dude, what are you doing? They're like, well, we've got to put on a show, and you're like, what the heck? Chill out. We're just catching some food for dinner. And it's like, what? Meteor strike.
Oh my god! Imagine she destroyed everything.
Level 8 spells, wish spells. Like summoning greater demon just to capture something to eat. You're like, mate, chill.
Yeah, all right. Someone's compensating for something.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, brilliant.
I kind of like the idea that there is a wizard, like as just not like a Thay thing, but just like you have a wizard who just does whatever the highest spell they have for whatever, like you make it the rule, and maybe it's a curse or something like that, or you don't explain it, but every time they must cast a spell to do the next thing, they must use one of the highest spell slots they have to enforce it as just like a rule. So like, you need to get food. Well, I've only got a 9th level spell, so shit, I'm going to have to use my wish spell for the day to get food. And then it's like, okay, now we're at the door, and you're like, well, teleport. Like I don't know. It could become more fun. It's like, right, we're fighting something. Okay, meteor strike, and it's just like you're just fighting an undead skelly bob. That doesn't require much, but you
Yeah.
force them to use them until the end of the day, and like make that like a mechanic, like until the end, and like then it gets to the end of the day, and now they're fighting a lich. You're like, well, all I've got now, I've used all my good spells is. Yeah, witch bolt or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, which will instantly fizzle out to nothing.
Exactly. Yeah,
absolutely. That's kind of it, really, in this sort of place. But like the Tharchion here, Yarlend Hulthron, says question mark.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
A self-taught talent of the art who was once a soldier stationed in this land. He impressed Szass Tam by defeating a Mulhoney strike force despite being vastly outnumbered. So again, I like the idea that is, how do you impress Szass Tam then to be installed stuff? Like it shows cunning and cleverness, but also kept at sort of arm's length because again, Szass Tam has that sort of paranoia of wanting people who are smart and think outside the box and don't just say yes to all his things. So I thought that was interesting. Szass Tam discovered this person was a sorcerer. He named him to the vacant Tharchionate on the spot. He was just like, great, you've got it. Which again, I'm sure you've seen the news recently, feels very much like a certain world leader just now who's just like, you're now this person instead of just changing around who you are in the various things because of stuff that's happened. So I thought that could be interesting where if you had like a meeting of all the Tharchers and Tharchions and Szass Tam is there goes, okay, government reshuffle, and then just fires people on the spot, clearly like kills them straight away, goes, all right, you are now taking over this Tharch, like again, just that, it always makes me laugh when you think about like government and like in the UK, like the cabinet reshuffle, and you're like, oh, they're now the head of this part, and I'm like, do they have any experience with that?
No, don't get me started on it. It's one of those things that is like the most illogical logic that I don't get why someone could be the health secretary and they're not a doctor. Like, why are they, like, how
Never
are
experienced it, yeah.
No, and it's like next minute you're like education secretary. You're like, have you ever worked in a school? Are you a head teacher somewhere? No. So how on earth can you? I know that they have a team of unelected people who are civil servants who are
absolutely
trained and organized into these things, but it's freaking wild, right?
Yeah.
Like, have you done policy based? If you've like spent your life work not working as a teacher, but you spent your life work working on policy for education, and that is your end goal, but the fact that you switch between the education secretary and the foreign secretary and then the health secretary, don't get me started, Michael.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't get Michael Gove in here. Oh,
don't get just bloody that guy and go in the sea. But anyway, right. I know he's not our current one, but he was everything. And you're like, he had no idea about anything. And he's just
been shipped from department to department. Nobody wanted to deal with him.
And then again, we could talk about RFK Jr. I mean, he's definitely thought a lot about health. That's for sure. He's definitely thought a lot about it.
I mean, he has.
He spent his lifetime looking at their health. Question mark, underlined. Yeah. Oh, God, it's grim outside, isn't it?
It really fucking is. To finish off on the Tharchion himself, a hardy man, superb horseman, and has simple tastes. He's dedicated to defending his corner of Thay and is keenly aware of wayfarers who enter the region, but doesn't look down on the Mulharani or any other outlander. In fact, he treats the mighty red wizards and dirt-poor labourers alike as equals. He is, however, desperately lonely and dreams of someday finding a suitable mate who will ride at his side, the long-haired companion of his dreams. And I'm just there going like, what an interesting phrase, long-haired companion. Because I thought to myself, is he talking about a horse? Like, because I said earlier, he was talking about horses.
I read that and went, is he a centaur?
Yeah.
There was one. Yeah. Maybe.
I just thought it was interesting. Again, that idea of like, what seems like I'm just a nice guy, I treat everyone equal, but if only someone would see me for who I was, the Disney princess of like, if only I could find love. Again, I know you could have all sorts of stories where he goes, again, very Cinderella, like, I wish to find a mate. I will hold some sort of, not ball, but some sort of event, and people can come and be my suitor.
A dressage event.
There you go, equestrian events. Oh, perfect. And maybe that's how you have to get close to him, is to pretend to be a part of some weird bachelor, like, TV reality show kind of inspired kind of event. Oh, God. Yeah, but again, I thought that was different and interesting compared to like, I'm just evil. Like, of course, this person is evil, and they've been installed in power through an evil means.
People want love too.
Yeah, it's just like, welcome to my lair. Horse riding in the morning, excellent. For me, it was like, this definitely is a person that's different to undead and loyal to Szass Tam. I just thought, okay, that's interesting. I think the thing I'd say, and maybe I mentioned this last time before we go into the final Tharch, is that I kind of wish there was more about the hobbies. Because we said before about the Red Wizards, like, they had weird hobbies, and I know we keep banging on about it a little bit, but I'd love to know, like, this person
Yeah.
likes horse riding. Okay, what does that mean? Like, and there's that one from the previous episode we did, which was like, I like being transformed so I can fly.
Fly,
It's like,
yeah.
I like more stuff like that. We're like, what's their little weird thing? And you're like, like you're at a party, like, that's so and so. They've just left their partner. Is that little gossip game? You never guess what their thing is.
Yeah.
Acrobatics. They do clowning on the weekends. Yeah. As we joked before, like, they're part of an improv team.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing. No, I totally agree. I think that would be they made it such a thing at the beginning. Why is it? It would be a thing that you should
put
make
it throughout.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
100%. And then it's the last one.
The bounty of Thay.
The bounty of Thay.
Tyrathoros, I believe is how you pronounce it. It is the heart, the backbone, and the big belly of Thay. Ooh. Again, I've just got this huge image of, like, this just vast land as a result. And annually produces many vegetable crops. Oh, you could say it's verdant then. And copious amounts of fruit in its southern reaches, and especially known for its grain crops that are made into bread, ale, and stronger fiery drinks, such as Bazador, which is a sweet, jet black, syrupy vintage beloved by many Thayans, but is an acquired taste for most drinkers from other lands. Again, and we talked about this a little bit with Strahd, and how, like, the Wizards of Winery, there's a big plot hook there where it's like, oh, this alcohol makes people, a bit more numb to the depressingness of the thing. And I just thought it's interesting to have, like, food, specifically alcohol, being like a big sort of, like, feature in a place like this, because I can imagine, like, oh, what if for whatever reason they can't produce their allotment of this fiery drinks? What happens then? Do people are in uproar about it? Like, like, people getting into their own moonshine business, and they're trying to make their own drinks, and it's going horribly wrong. I always think it's really interesting. It always reminds me of I'm sure you had this as well, like, in the pandemic, the first things that were first to open when we were coming out of the pandemic wasn't schools, it was the pubs. And I was like going, God, that's incredibly fucking depressing. But that's what the economy is run on, is
it is,
alcoholism,
Get out to build the economy, whatever it was. No, it's so true. But it's got some interesting, like, I think the thing that I took away from it was the sentence of Tyraturans are generally contented citizens who live in a peaceful, orderly, fairly governed Tharch, where adventures and bad things happen elsewhere. The roads and even the back orchards are safe by night, and the surveillance of red wizards and less obvious spies is happily accepted as the price of such safety. It's the Tharch where one can buy anything or find skilled crafters who, for a fair price, and when they finally get to your order among all their high-powered orders, will make something to your own custom design. So you're kind of just like, it's got this very calming, unlike some which have been sort of separate because of their like allowed rebellion nature, or separate because of their sort of there's nothing there. This is sort of just sort of the neutral ground, the sort of, like, it's just the bit, it's just the countryside, it's just where the people live. It's got lots of revels and street music performances and plays out of newly crafted theatres from the current Tharch. Has worked hard on this, it says. And it's like, coin is abundant and competition is fierce, and commerce is not controlled by a few noble and wealthy merchant families, but it's actually about competition and fair prices, as it says. So it's like, because commerce is not controlled by the few noble, exactly. So it's like this more place where, and corruption is the foe again. So this seems to be a big thing of, like, that. But obviously, like, it's trying to be the most fairest, like, slightly capitalist democracy society-ish thing without the democracy part. It's sort of like, everyone can make their fair wares. There's no, like, feudalism, super feudalism here. It's just you do a good job, you get paid for your work, you make nice things, you can farm the land, there's everything you need here. There is an abundance of resources and everyone is free to access them, kind of thing. It's kind of what it seems like. It's
very different to, obviously, the Thatch, because it came from a place of, like, the actual city. It was once notorious as the filthy, unpleasant place, and it's been turned around by the previous Thatchions, and, like, a lot of investment has been put into it, not only for the infrastructure itself, but also a very highly trained city watch who are well trained, they're given well paid, and it's they're not as susceptible to corruption, which I think is really interesting. There's this one line that made me laugh, which is like, this city remains Thay's third largest and is no longer considered its most detested. I was like, oh, I like that as a title, like most detested city in Thay, going around.
But it's the, you won't believe what the seventh is.
Yeah, exactly. It's all of Thay. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. And like you said, there's like a sort of, is where you can buy anything or find a skill crafters to do stuff. So again, in my head, it's very much like farmers market slash compared with like an Etsy store. If you're like, I need a certain thing, but it needs to be, I need to commission like a stained glass window or a mosaic bit for the house. I know where I will go. So I think that's interesting as well. It's very different to the other places. It is an Etsy store, right? Skilled glass blowers, masons, dyers, and weavers can all be found in abundance. So again, it's that sort of thing where we know Thayans like things looking complete and looking extravagant, like exquisite, but like skilled. And this is where you'd find and hire them, I think. So yeah, home improvements. Maybe we've talked about. Well, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but like how they have stuff like home improvement fairs or wedding fairs. Yeah. Maybe this is the sort of thing. Is that this is the place where you had those conventions where you go around, and this week it is. I don't know, like the naming ceremony convention where it's like, we get to name the child who comes to the venture. Well, of course, you need a naming ceremony planner. And let me tell you, they've got these people who are very good at it. And here's the beautiful cake we can make, all these things where you could do live events, and they are just conventions in this particular city, on and on.
No, I like it. I think, the great Thayan bake-off.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. The great Thayan pottery throwdown,
Yes. I love that. I do like that show.
Yeah, it's quite wholesome, isn't it?
It is very wholesome. The guy who cryes all the time is really nice. I think he's he's very in touch with emotions, but I think it's really positive. There's the weirdest thing is that they got to the last one and thought, we better put some points of interest down properly. It was so weird.
And they structured them differently as well, points of interest. And then I was like, where the
heck was this in all the other ones? It's like they got to the last one and went, we should have been doing this.
Oh, well, yeah, we've already written it.
Well, we'll just do it on this one and we'll maybe come back to it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
There's three things. There's the Hall of Masks, the Loom of the Many, and the Ring of Wizards. And my notes for the Hall of Masks was, seen it, done it, forget it. Yeah. Loom of the Many was meh. And the Ring of Wizards was okay, interesting, but okay. This is GM work. You've given me GM work. So the Hall of Masks is like a mansion, which is a club where you can put on masks, and the collector of the owner from tombs all over the Torrel. And you wander the rooms. Whoever puts on a mask are guaranteed to have visions that may entertain, guide, or enlighten to where the heart's true desire may be found. And they may be vivid, unpleasant, puzzling, driven people like mad, or if they some leave pleased, some leave inspired, some leave to embark on expeditions. It's kind of like, okay, it's a kind of thing. I like how they've changed the whole masquerade ball into actually this like sort of drug fueled experience, but it's kind of like, it's a little bit like a peyote thing. It sounds like here's like Thay's version of like going on a, bunch of people, slightly, richer folk go and pay for some religious experience with drugs, kind of thing to like gain enlightenment. Sort of, I don't know. I'm maybe like dishing out a bit harsh on it, but you know what I mean.
I think you're right. Like I like the concept of it, but I just feel like it's at odds with what this city is. Yeah. I feel like this should be in the city. Weirdly, I think of the city that has the rival theatres, but there's other cities which are like, this one with full of vice, or other Thatchers, that are full of vices. Yeah. I'm like, this is just supposed to be a nice, peaceful place.
That's what I totally agree. It feels like it's in the wrong place.
Maybe it's a holdover from the original, like, it's a notorious, filthy, dirty city, and they're like, well, the rent in all the other places, we can't find a good building, so we've got to stay here undercover. I guess there's that to it, but it just feels so out of keeping. Because there's no corruption, there's no reason why. Like, I guess I don't know. I did feel it was quite a weird place to put it. I would put it in a different Thatch, to be honest with you. I like the idea of it, but I was like, why would I come here? I've come here to order my curtains. I've not come here to like have an evening, and like go, ooh, I saw something. Did you see something? Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that sort of thing where you have that in your partnerships and relationships, that one of you is really keen to go and do shopping and the other person does not. So they're like, I'll just go to the Hall of Masks. You pick me up afterwards, that sort of thing where you go off and do your own thing whilst they go and do home improvement shopping.
Yeah. And it's also like a thing where it's like you can make it a place to go, that you have to
Yes.
find someone there, and then your players get put in one of the masks, and you can use it as a GM way to give them some lore about themselves, or some play some back. You know, when you're doing those, like, I want to bring in some of their backstory, and this is where you can bring that into the game again. You know, like, or you see a vision of your long lost sister, or your parents aren't actually dead because everyone's an author. You know, so you know, those kind of things. Like, that's your opportunity to like give a new quest, or like a larger, or if you've got like something brewing in the background. You know, like you've got a wider campaign idea, like some grand wizard's going to take over, or a lich is going to take over, or a grand wizard's going to take over, or a lich is going to take over. I don't, you know, seem to always be one of the two.
One of those things back and
or
forth.
Or the dragons are coming back, or whatever your idea is for your grand idea. But that's your point where you can like plant some seeds about future visions or things like that. You know, it's always, there's always fun in campaigns, you know, like always needed every once in a while, a bit of exposition through
100%.
crazy drugs. I don't know.
Yeah. Like the Loom of Many, I like the idea of it. It's a nice thing. Like, oh, it's a large weathery, you know, these 5 women who all jointly own it. They've become very rich. It's a big business. And I'm like, cool.
Cool, but why?
Give us some names. Is there a reason? Like, is like,
I'm waiting for something. I was waiting for it to come out, like something to happen.
Yeah, is there a
it's
plot
powered
point?
by demons. It actually curses you.
They've got a monopoly on stuff, and so all these other businesses are going out of business for unknown
hags,
reasons.
and if you
They're
wear
hags.
them,
They must be hags, right? Sorry, yeah, you're right. They're probably hags because it's all to do with the weave and threads and all that stuff. That's what it is. It has to be that.
And one day they're going to just, all the garments are going to shrink and teleport you to their boiling pot.
Because that's what it says. They use up their wealth that they've gained from this business to become landlords, buying up seedy local properties and building taller and better housing on the same sites. Again, very cool. But maybe you could have a whole thing going like, oh well, they bought up all the housing, and the rents are going up, even though they're making a lot of money. You know, maybe anything.
Gentrification. They're gentrifying and actually, in that sense, hurting people getting on the property ladder.
So I know it sounds really silly, but I was like, okay, I like the name. Sounds really good. Oh, the Loom of the Many. Maybe is it going to be something about predictions and all that? No, it's just a big business that's been here, and like, okay, not even like a suggestion of what you would go and get. Then unless like, identical garments. Yeah, it's fast fashion, if anything. That's what it is. Yeah. Like, it's, you want the same shorts again? Okay.
Primark. They're Primark.
Yeah. Oh my, it is Primark. There you go. Okay, maybe we've made it better as a result. Or it's like, you know, our t-shirts we get, the DM's Book Club t-shirt. I think it's that Fruit of the Loom, or whatever it's called. It's exactly that. Loom of Many is Fruit of the Loom. There you go.
The Ring of Wizards. These guys are, it's sort of like a really interesting idea. There was like a bunch of stoned wizards that were in a ring, a bit like, you know, like a Stonehenge that was buried underground, and when exposed to the light and found in this cavern, they started to speak and speak in these weird rings. And at first it was like the only person that could hear the utterance was they would only speak to red wizards. And then Szass Tam supposedly went up and said, let all who wish to hear them hear all they will. So maybe they probably were red wizards because they only would talk to red wizards or something like that. But they say really random things, which I'm like,
I love it.
I was reading these and going like, what's there? Is there like, and I feel it probably isn't anything, to be honest.
But it's the magic 8-ball, like, message unclear, come back later. Yeah, so fucking funny. Again, it is something that you'd absolutely say, like, you know, I think you would put it to the players about, you know, like, look, compared to the Hall of the Masks, this place, the Ring of Wizards, it's a novelty thing. And then you could be like, oh, I'm going to go up and find something. And you go, cool. And then you reach into the bag of the mass-produced fortune cookies you've bought, eat one and go, lucky 13 is sometimes for you, you know, and you're like, what the fuck does that mean? You know, I think that's what I would do. I'd just buy myself a huge big fortune cookies and just be eating them every time they go, and I'd be like, great, I don't mind that.
You know what? I've just had an idea, right? There's a Thay involved in this, right? Okay, because the Thay love a good trick. So what I think it does at this place is the Thay whisper something to them, and their whole goal is to send people on wild goose chase adventures, which have no meaning, right? There is something at the end, but like the whole point is just for the trick of the Thay, and it will say things that maybe hint on something that's, they know you, they can read you because they got this Thay, like arch-Thay thing, and maybe it's just like, and it's like, I don't know, maybe you lost, like it says one of them is like, when the night erupts in hundreds of staring eyes, dream no longer, take up your sword and use it, right? So maybe it says that to you. And then the next day, you just say, you like they go to sleep and you go, suddenly you awake in the night and you see thousands of stars
Yeah.
turn to eyeballs and they stare at you. And what do? And so you're like, shit, that's the prophecy. I get my sword out. And then all that happens is this Thay person goes, got ya.
Got ya.
Like that.
Yeah.
Got ya.
Prediction. Got ya.
Got ya, you bloody idiot. See ya. And you're like, what? That was it? And it's like, yeah, that was all.
Right.
You know.
Like, again, I like the idea that you roll randomly and then the players go, well, this must mean something. And then sessions later, you say something like, oh, it came true. And you're like, yes, it did. Like, because I think, there's sometimes a lot of pressure when you ask for prophecies and stuff. People go, oh, well, it has to, you plan something. You're like, fucking haven't. Like, half these don't make any sense.
But I love the idea of the Thay just is actually there, has been there the whole time following you. And you kind of have that, maybe someone like nearly dies. You're like, you've been there the whole time? Oh, yeah. I've been here the whole time since then. You're like, what, just following us? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that you could catch us falling for this stupid prank.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I've got shit all to do, guys. I'm an archfey. Like, I've literally done it all. This is how I get my kicks. You're like, okay. And then maybe you can try and like get this Thay to join the party or have a little fun time with the Thay. You know, like, do you know what I mean? It's like a bit of like a nice way to introduce a bit of lightheartedness into it.
It feels very
like
Q from
maybe.
Yeah, it feels like very Q from Star Trek. Yeah, 100%. Like yes.
Yeah, I got you to believe my prophecy.
Yes, haha. Japes,
And that kind of like not understanding the humor of the immortal, that kind of thing.
And then finally we got the Tharchion for this. God, this name, Elvira Hydra Hardor.
No, you missed the case. So there's Elvira Hyadra.
Elvira Hyadra. Wow, bloody! But you made it sound better than I did. It's just like bloody hell. Like again, we said this before. This book has pronunciation goes, for all the Tharchers, great, and nothing for these leaders. And you're like,
they gave up on these.
This is a petite, brown-haired, rather plain woman who possesses a scowling brows. All these women that we have, they've got always frowning, always wristing bitch faces, I see, and black iris gaze that can become dagger sharp when irked. A master diplomat and an actor, always complete control of her face and voice, whose reason calmly, even under intense pressure, and always seeks to do the right thing, meaning that what will advance her causes and aims in the long run, not necessarily what will win in the moment or be the most comfortable or the least awkward right now. A very interesting way of saying, like, takes their time. It's a means to an end. That's the kind of the vibe we're getting for this person here. And she has like a very interesting relationship of like with Szass Tam, going like she sort of keeps him out sort of a little bit arm's length, like is careful to obey him with diligent care. Is like listening to everything. Goes, of course, yes, Szass Tam, of course. So I think that's an interesting way again, like sucking up to him a little bit, but not necessarily believing every word he says. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and she's kind of got this like, can seemingly come across as being nice because like, I want the people of Thay to have a lovely time and I want it all to be great because I'd rather we invaded other countries and made them do all the work, and you're like, so you can play the red flag, right? You're kind of like, she's a nice. She's like, I really want Thay to like stop all this hard labor. We should all be living in harmony and having a great time here because the rest of Toril could be doing this for us. And you're like, bye. All right,
cool.
Well, nice, good.
You slap your knees and go, right, time to leave,
Totally, thank you. Yeah, you're like, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. We finished our I say whistle-stop tour. Well, we got to the end of the Thay. We're on the Thay Mounts. We're looking at this horrific land.
Yeah, and if you want more, there's like a whole bucket load of pages in Selmazar's tour as well, if you ever so wish. But God, we've given up.
We've given up. And in the sense of like the Shellsmas tour, again, we said it, I think last episode, where it's like, it's points of interest, but from this person's point of view, unneeded, completely unneeded, I think, because you've got the information here, but like we need those, like in this particular, the last Thatcher we just looked at, that's what it needed, those points of interest that here's free at the end, like throughout all of them, and then just a little paragraph in each of them, as well as what we have for the Thatch. Like, again, I think maybe it's a mixture of like they ran out of energy or ran out of time or ran out of money, depending on who's writing what, perhaps. I think overall, interested. I am glad to be getting out of Thay, because I have found it a little bit depressing in places. I'll be honest. It's a bit
much, isn't it? We've been talking a lot about horrible people for quite a while. It's kind of like, it'd be nice to do something.
I think by the time this episode is out, we'll have had a whole month of Thay from on the podcast, which is again, is absolutely fine. So, but I feel like a lot more knowledgeable about, like, from before. I said, like, I don't know much about Red Wizards, I don't know much about Szass Tam, but now I've got a good sense, and I feel like I could Whether or not I'd use Thay completely is not beside the point, but I can imagine using it for like using parts of it for the setting. Like I really liked the Surthey stuff, like that idea of swamps and whatnot. And like certain bits and pieces, I think like we talked about it. I know we like loved it before, this idea of the rival theaters in one of the other. I think it was El Tabar. It's like I feel like there's bits of it where you go, oh yes, I can put that in my own campaigns or use it for my own states if you come up with the map. So yeah, I very much appreciate it. But God, it's depressing, especially right now. I think so.
The other things in this book, like if people are interested in getting this book, like not only learning about Thay, I think it's like there's another magic subclass here, wizard subclass.
Yeah.
There's a couple of like weapons you can get. There's some monsters, but they're very goat heavy. Like there's an
invisible goat, isn't it? Yeah, there's an invisible goat somewhere.
There's a many-hued goat. There's the bogmore, which is a 5-headed goat, or a hydra goat, and there's a polter goat. And that's 4 out of the 5. The only other one is then a proto-draco lich, which is kind of interesting. There's a couple of backgrounds as well. And then it's got an adventure, which is the intrigue in El Tabar, which is like something for you to actually get involved in. I believe.
And it makes sense it'll be El Tabar as well, because that is like basically what we would consider like the capital or a place of like of the most things I can imagine adventurers would like to go to and visit. So yeah.
And there's some good. They're not great. They're like hand-drawn maps, but there's a couple of maps there if you're looking for it. So I think like in terms of if you were going to buy this book, I would only. Is it a worthy buy? What would you say? I don't know. Like,
I think there's a lot of potential there. I do feel it could have done with a restructure in certain things. Like we talked about it before in that chapter 1, the recipes, great idea. Wildly shouldn't be like located. Just banged in the middle of this chapter with the stuff after it. I think chapter 2 had some interesting bits to it, but it was quite short compared to this one. And then I feel like it's got enough stuff to be like, oh, here are all the Tharches, but then, it's a weird thing because like we've talked about this before, like the Waterdeep primer with Volo. I enjoyed that idea of like here's all the stuff from this point of view, but it felt like condensed to the point. Here, like that, this tour again, we didn't cover it in this one, but it was just such a slog after 11 different Tharches, which were some of them quite long, some of them very similar, and then the Tharchions. Yeah, so I feel like it has the potential for stuff. I think it just needed a bit of a rewrite or a bit of a copy edit just to make it a bit more sense. But I think there's stuff in there. If it's on sale, I would recommend getting it. I think it's my big sort of takeaway from it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that's exactly how I take it. Unless you've got like loads of DM's Guild credits because you make things on DM's Guild and you've got some spare and you're interested, worth a look. A bit. I think it's like because it's such a big part of D&D lore. I feel better knowing more about it because I feel like they're trying so hard for it to be a part of it. I feel like I don't know if they're making a sequel to the movie. Are they making a sequel to the movie?
I don't know. They've got the TV show coming soon. That's question mark.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I actually don't know about the movie. I mean, it feels like it would have already been announced by now, surely, if they were, because obviously everyone gets very busy in terms of like, unless they're going to do for a whole new set of adventurers.
I just think they make enough money. I don't think they're making a sequel. So, but it felt like they were leading up to Thay as a sequel. That was
it felt like a trilogy, didn't it? Like that's what I can imagine of it. Yeah, because I was like, "Whoa!" Because like I said I didn't know anything about it.
It's a real shame because I really enjoyed it. But there you go. But my point was that it seemed like Thay was becoming more and more important in it, and I think it would be. It's one of those things. It's like Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter, and it's in the same realms of those. It's something that's always come back up. Unlike places like Mulhorande or even like Arm is a little bit more, but like Kalimshan has been left behind, and lots of those other lands, Cormyr, hardly ever talked about. Like it's just Sword Coast and pretty much Thay that are like as well known, and the 10 towns. I
Clearly,
guess,
it doesn't have a lich. Doesn't get a C in. I think that's the thing.
No lich, no
entry.
Itch, no itch.
No itch, no lich, no shoes.
Yeah.
Anyway, Hamilton, I'm just aware of time, but thank you so much for joining me on our little travel book club. Let's have a break from traveling around this awful place of Thay. Tell folks where we can find you, what are you working on, and where can we find more about your work?
Well, you can find me as Theatre Macabre all over the internet doing things. I did a recent video which annoyingly got called in because I think it said it was too. I don't know what the reason is, but supposedly because it's too violent. Because I was talking about a war game, and it's been I can't have ads on my video, so it's going like
demonetized.
nowhere.
Oh
It's
no.
not demonetized. It can still be monetized, but only from like people who pay for YouTube Professional, like no ads. And it's like, but it's a war. I think it's because it's a war game, but I'm talking about guns and stuff. So they've like said, oh, this is violent. I'm like, I don't know if this is a thing that's happening to war game YouTubers or anything, or TTRPG YouTubers. But I've got a video on there about Forbidden Psalm. I talk about that game. If you're like Morkborg and you're interested in interested in getting into miniatures, particularly, I think it's a great way in because it's a very rules light version of miniature skirmish games using the Morkborg system. So if you already know that, you're pretty much halfway there, or even like 75% of the way there. All you need to do is get some miniatures and learn how to measure in inches, and you're fine. So like that's pretty much it. And it's a fun game, and I'm going to be making some characters for it in my next. So there might be, by the time this comes out, I'm making a cult to summon an evil being from beyond to enact the apocalypse. As that's my goal.
That's
what I'm
the
going to be building. Yeah, so I'm going to be doing that. And Wraithborn is ongoing. You can still purchase Late Pledge, and if you do Late Pledge, you get access to a secret backers area in the Discord where I'm releasing early material. I've already released the Ironclad, which are my mystical warriors set out forth into a corrupting mist where there's these mechanical creatures. The corruption is some sort of mechanical mechanized thing because some wizards mucked around with numbers, and it's kind of a lot of fun. And that's out there, so you can start playing as some of those. And maybe by the time this come out, my Dampirs and Bloodseekers, which are the vampiric beings and the sort of vampiric hybrids between arachnids and vampires that have been crafted to go and collect blood, and they can do blood magics and brew tonics to enact magical effects. And so there's all that sort of stuff out there in the world, and that's pretty much it. And talking of being out in the world, a place abundant with realms to explore, people to meet, stories to be told. And I have heard, pray tell, actually on the Vine, that there is a place hidden amongst this verdant land upon which we live that holds true knowledge, the knowledge of all the multiplicitous, the variations of tabletop role-playing games, and all I've been told to search it is to speak one utterance, one small single vowel, a single syllable of where.
Oh, look at that. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Where I am so glad you asked, so fervently glad. My name is Fiona. My name is Fiona, and I run the What Am I Rolling, a twice monthly tabletop RPG one-shot podcast where we do lots of different RPGs and interviews with game designers. At time recording, I think Savage Wars probably is wrapping up just now, question mark. Who knows? Time is a weird soup. But also we've had some interviews from stuff. I interviewed recently Daniel Kwan from Asians Represent about his game Wandering Blades. And it was a lovely time. He began his origin story into D&D by joining a program that happened at his local museum. So you got to play D&D against all these cool exhibits.
That's cool.
Because he loves like museums, stuff like that, obviously his whole degree was like on archaeology and historical stuff, became part of the museum and carried on running these programs for kids and stuff like that. And you're just like,
what an origin story that is.
What an origin story.
Cool.
Like, damn, what a bloody wholesome guy. And yeah, and we talked about like how important it is. How do we get, teenagers and a younger audience into role-playing games, and how do we facilitate those games? And it was just really interesting to talk about that philosophy about not only like storytelling, but also like how to not control yourself, but sort of think about like how you interact with others and like how to regulate yourself. That's what I was saying, because obviously when you're a teenager or younger, lots of emotions and stuff, like learning to share and all that sort of thing, and it's just really fascinating. So I would love people to go check that interview out, as well as go check out Wandering Blades as well, which will be on Kickstarter.
Which has got some cool miniatures. They're like perspex miniatures, which I think look really beautiful.
The artwork is, I would recommend it. It's the Wandering Blades is wushu genre, so that's sort of like Chinese sort of martial arts inspired, like folklore sort of fighting style. And yeah, the acrylic standees that they've produced, so beautiful, and the artwork is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's
Please go
really
check
good.
it out. Like again,
No, it's really good.
I don't know much about the genre myself, but obviously Daniel spoke so passionately about it, and the artwork was just so inviting and stuff. And again, you don't need them to play the game, but it's this idea of like, what if we did a cinematic style? If you think of Ghost of Tsushima, that is Japanese, I will say, but the fighting in that is very cinematic, and to the point where Daniel has on his dev blog and on the Patreon, he goes through like sequences of like certain films he's watching, and he will match it to what you can do with the mechanics of the game, and so he can map out bit for bit.
That's cool.
Very cool. I just thought that was really interesting, and yeah, and so there's lots of him talking about Ghost of Tsushima, lots of animes and stuff like that. Yeah, and you could do this like, in my game. Spend an action, do this, you know, and you can describe it out. And I'm just like, that's really cool, and it just makes it a lot easier. Yeah, really interesting. Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right, I look forward to listening to that then.
Yeah,
I've got a long journey today, so it's out now, isn't it? It's out now. Is it out now? No, I mean, it's not yet.
It's not. Sorry, it's not out.
It'll be out when this video is. When this audio is out.
I mean, hopefully you go on another long journey.
I can't listen to it right now.
Sorry, I had I've recorded it, but it's not out now. But it's present. What the fuck? Yeah. So yeah.
That's what I mean. I was confused because I remember you said you recorded it the other day, so I didn't know if it was going to be out already, but it's not.
No.
But very cool. Interesting. I've confused time.
Whoa, weird. Wait, let us go. Let us leave Thay, and we'll go back into the. Thank you so much for listening, friends. We hope you're well. Hope you're safe. We'll see you next time for another episode of the DM's Block Club. But until then,
we will see you on the flip side.
Bye.